Sort it later. Okay.
Right.
Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the first Decarbonisation Net Zero webinar. Very pleasing to see so many familiar faces joining today, and also welcome to anybody that's new, that's joined for the first time. Welcome all, and thanks for attending. Just to introduce myself, first of all, for those that don't know me, my name is Jonathan Howl. I'm an energy advisor at Coventry City Council, and I'm chairing today's session. Now, just a bit of context and set the scene. The Net Zero programme is designed to help businesses in the West Midlands region reduce their energy use and to secure grant funding to facilitate that. So speaking today, we have three of my colleagues from within the programme who will be giving guidance on their areas of expertise. So just to sort of set the scene in terms of what today's session will give you, you will learn an introduction to the programme, what benefits it could potentially bring your business and how to access the support. You'll see what to expect from an energy audit, free energy audits to reiterate, and what the grant funding can be used for. And then finally, we're looking at any other areas of support that the programme can provide. So before we start, I'd like to just go through a little bit of housekeeping, first of all. If we can just jump to the housekeeping slide, Maria, if possible. There we go. So look, not rocket science this, as you would expect. If you could all turn your videos off if possible, that just helps with our bandwidth, and also mute yourselves so we don't get any background noise. We're planning to ask questions at the end of the session. As I say, we've got three speakers and we're going to have them all speak back to back and then have a nice Q&A at the end. So that's when to save your questions for. You can happily drop questions in the chat function beforehand or at that time, it's up to you. And I will open up the floor for raised hands, as you would expect at the end of the session as well. And also, just to outline, the webinar will be recorded and shared at the end of the session as well. So just to quickly go through the agenda for this afternoon as well, if we can jump to that slide, Maria. Okay, due to start now, as you can see, then we have our three speakers ending at hopefully about 3:30, 25 to 4, when we'll open up for the Q&A, and we'll expect to end at 4. If we don't, and we've got lots of questions, great. That's what we're here for. Hopefully, we've got a lot of discussions going on. If we have, we can extend, but if not, we'll try and finish at 4 on the dot. Okay, so moving on. Just one thing to point out. This is an expert panel. We're here to help you. We're here to help your business. So between us, we have a wealth of experience. Please reach out. Please join into the discussions. We're here to help you move forward and secure some funding. So hopefully you'll find everything today of interest. So just quickly moving on to our first speaker, I would like to introduce Martin Grant from Aston University to the session. Good afternoon, Martin, and over to you.
Afternoon, everybody. Nice to be part of the overall programme. So yeah, just going to quickly kind of give you an overview of what the Decarbonisation Net programme is about. So yeah, if you can go to the next slide. So yeah, just a quick introduction, just give you an idea of the objectives, what we will be doing, how that's potentially going to benefit you guys, what's kind of expected as a kind of a client kind of journey, and then obviously the kind of important bit is how to actually kind of register and get sort of started on the programme itself. So yeah, just so you're aware, it's basically the overall Decarbon Net Zero programme is kind of managed by the West Midlands Combined Authority. Aston University is the kind of lead partner on this, and we're supported by, as you'll kind of learn later on, our kind of colleagues at Coventry and within the Black Country. Aston University, if you're not aware, we're based in the middle of Birmingham. We've got a very successful history in terms of supporting small businesses, and we've got a number of programs through things like Enviro, which is our environmental bio research institute, the Aston Centre for Growth, which looks at specifically at supporting small businesses, and the CREAM program, which is looking specifically at supporting ethnic minority and underrepresented entrepreneurs in terms of their business kind of careers. So there's a number of areas that we can support with. So the objectives, what we're really looking to do is basically kind of help small businesses to reduce their energy, decarbonisation in the kind of jargon. Why are we doing that? Well, we're looking to obviously align with the UK's kind of legally binding kind of net zero targets and reducing our overall emissions, and ultimately to provide support to businesses to if you're being efficient with your energy, then you're being kind of potentially much more competitive in terms of your sustainability. You're saving money, which means that you can take that money and invest it in other areas of your program and help you to grow your businesses efficiently. So that's what we're looking for, is basically a very healthy and energy efficient small business community. So how we're going to basically achieve that is by delivering what we're calling energy audits or energy assessments for small and medium enterprises. So we're looking, just as a quick kind of background, so basically that would mean to be eligible, you're employing less than 250 people, you've got a turnover of less than approximately kind of 45 million pounds, and a balance sheet value of sort of less than around about 33 million, and you're not owned by a larger entity by more than sort of 10%. So that's, you've got to basically be a small business, and you need to be kind of operating in the Birmingham and Solihull area, Coventry, and across the Black Country regions. So if you fit into those categories broadly, then you're eligible, and we would be able to support you and be very much encouraging that to happen. So as I kind of touched on earlier, there's a kind of an obvious thing here in terms of cost savings, because if your business is running efficiently, then that impacts directly on your bottom line. There is also the other side of things in terms of carbon footprint reduction, and we, from operate, as you'll hear later on from some of our other partners, we're getting more and more of a circumstance where if you're a small business and you're part of a larger supply chain, then the bigger companies may well be asking now for you to start to kind of prove your energy credentials and operating to certain standards, all of which, if you can prove that, and doing something like our assessment process will take you a long way towards it, that will be very helpful. And there are grants available to basically help you to implement the recommendations that you will receive during the energy assessment. Those kind of range from about 1,000 up to 100,000 in order to implement those recommendations. But you can't actually access the grant until you've had a signed off energy assessment. So this is basically the first part of that overall journey. So next slide, please. Yeah. And yeah, speaking of the journey, so effectively what happens is that you register with the, we'll send a link with the information at the end of this, but this Business Growth West Midlands website, there's a registration page. So basically put your information into that. That will then be sent through to us. We will then kind of look through that, reach out to you to kind of complete the information and just do those necessary eligibility checks that I talked about earlier. And next stage of that then is we will come out and undertake the energy assessment itself. Now that's completely free, and it will be aligned to what you're looking to achieve with your business. A lot of the companies that we're working with already have some quite good plans and energy strategies, and we're helping to support them. So the energy assessment will be aligned with what it is that you're looking to actually achieve. So next from that is you'll receive the report, which is then gives an overview of your current sort of circumstances, and also then contains sets of recommendations. Those can be in terms of new equipment or upgrading certain kind of components, or looking at actual processes within the company itself. But it's all basically designed to ensure that you will be operating as efficiently as possible. So then once the recommendation is completed, you can then take that and then contact your local authority, and it's those that are managing the actual grant applications, and that assessment will then form the backbone of your actual grant application process. So that's it kind of from beginning to end. So yeah, from our point of view, we'd absolutely kind of welcome as many of you as possible to kind of get in touch. Details are up there. So you can either email us, there's a phone number, or to be honest with you, the fastest way to do it is just basically if you go online to the Business Growth West Midlands page and just fill in the registration details, that'll come through to us, and then we will get in contact with you pretty quickly afterwards, and you're up and running then. So yeah, hopefully this is of interest, and my sort of two further kind of colleagues will kind of start to flesh out some of what that entails moving forward. So thanks very much for your time.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. Very well explained. And for anyone out there that's interested, that last slide we've just moved on from, that is the slide to use. We are sharing all the slides after the meeting, obviously. So yeah, just get in touch, and we're here to help. So thank you, Martin. Good words. So now we're going to flesh out, as Martin said, more about what to expect when we're on site dealing with you. So I'd like to introduce my colleague Steve Stones from Pro Enviro, and Steve's going to go through what to expect from an energy audit. So over to you, please, Steve.
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks very much. I just had one of those wonderful early presentation sessions where about 2 minutes ago my screen drops off completely. Thankfully, for me at least, it just came back again. So my name's Steve. I'm one of the auditors, or the reviewers, or the assessors, or whatever terminology you like to use. But my role within this particular program is to visit businesses and try and identify what opportunities might be available. And this very short presentation is to give you some idea of what to expect when we do come. Martin's already talked about the background, but let's say I don't really need to explain to everybody how electricity and energy in general has become more of an important issue for many organisations over the last 18 months as prices have increased significantly. Anything that a business can do to reduce its consumption is going to have an impact that is beneficial to that business. But as most people will recognise, it's difficult to do anything about something if you don't fully understand it. And what we try and do is give people the opportunity to understand the energy consumption, and then find ways to measure it, monitor it, and then start an improvement process that can help reduce the energy consumption and the cost that comes along with it. Give me a slide, please, Maria. Thanks very much. Yeah. The type of things that we'll look at will depend on the individual businesses, because not everybody does everything, and this programme is open to all organisations who are registered on Companies House, so from the very small to the very large end of the SMEs. As Martin said, get on for a £45 million turnover, all the way down to small businesses that are operating on the high street. We'll try and identify things that are cost effective for you to improve, and for most people we'll look at lighting and heating systems, but not just what the lights are. We'll look at the way they're controlled. We'll look at the way that the heating's controlled. We'll look at the way it operates in different ambient temperatures. And for those that have got more complex operations or involved in manufacturing, we look at manufacturing and processing equipment. We look at the way businesses are insulated. We'll look at the way the compressed air is generated, and we'll also have a look at where renewable technologies might be an option for businesses to install on their site, whether that be solar, thermal, or whether it be air source heat pumps. We will try and identify whether they are a good fit for a business and whether they're going to be cost effective. We'll also try and identify any waste energy, waste heat, and we'll also look at how things can be improved in terms of waste disposal for organisations, looking at a wider picture of decarbonisation, not just energy. Can I move that on, please, Maria? Thank you. Problems a lot of businesses have is they don't always think they've got the skills they need. And it's not just skills sometimes, it's they don't have the time to actually invest in identifying the opportunities that might exist. My experience is that all businesses can make some improvements. The scale of those improvements really depends what you've done in the past and where you're starting from as an organisation. But the good thing about this project, it provides the support and the time for somebody to come and do a review. The only thing the businesses need to do is try and make some information available to us prior to the start of the review itself. So we can spend the majority of the time looking at operations rather than collecting data. Our job is to try and make these barriers disappear and enable an organisation to make improvements with as little internal effort as possible. Can you move the slide, please, Mary? Thank you. An example that we've seen in a small manufacturing, I think it was actually small pottery, a ceramics company, and they had two fairly large compressors which were getting on 15 years old. We actually installed a logger on the compressors to actually map the consumption. I'll show you the chart in the next slide, but this business was consuming about 70,000 kilowatt hours on its compressors, and at today's rates is over £20,000. We did an assessment of the air demand and suggested and recommended that they replace what they had with a variable speed compressor, which would actually match the supply of air to the demand that was required at any one point of time, and that obviously reduces waste significantly. Following the installation, we did another assessment and identified that their actual savings were 43,000 kilowatt hours, which for them was valued at nearly £13,000. The compressor itself only cost 17,000, which I say only, it's obviously a significant amount, but when it's creating a payback period of 1.3 years and potentially has a grant attached to it to support the installation and the cost of buying it in the first place, it was a very straightforward decision for the business to make when they actually understood what the cost of their compressed air generation system was. And that's the type of thing that we can have a look at for most organisations when we come on site. Can we move on, Maria? Chart won't necessarily mean anything to most people, but it's giving an idea of the type of things that we can actually do. We have the technology, we have the equipment, we have monitoring equipment that we can use to identify where energy is being consumed and potentially where it's being wasted, because we have the skills and the technology and the experience to actually understand these and then explain them to organisations. And a lot of it's all about identifying waste. Okay, Maria, do you want to move on? Thanks. Short presentation. Happy to take questions at the end because I think it's important that people understand what's on offer. But We believe it's important that businesses consistently monitor and measure energy use. The thing about energy is you can't see it. It doesn't roll off the end of a line and drop into a skip as waste. You can only see it as something when you get your bills. But we want to be able to get people to understand what that profile of their energy consumption is, whether it's days, nights, what it actually means to their business. But the earlier you act, the sooner you'll actually start to make your improvements, and you're going to find that reducing energy provides financial and environmental benefits, but it's also giving you an opportunity to make sure that you stay competitive. I think Martin mentioned earlier on about supply chain. We've seen more and more companies insisting that organisations within their supply chain can demonstrate improvements, and hopefully an audit process like this and the report that it generates and the actions that can be taken will help provide that evidence to people to demonstrate what sort of steps they're taking to reduce their carbon emissions, and therefore the carbon emissions of the materials that go into their suppliers' products. Maria. Sorry, I think Maria, Jonathan's already mentioned we'll take questions at the end, so if you've got anything, either drop them in the chat so we can have a look at them in advance, and if not, we'll pick them up at the end of the presentations. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Steve. Very informative. And just to reiterate Steve's comments there, yeah, we've got a lot of nice questions dropping into the chat already, so we'll address those at the end of the actual session. And just to reiterate Steve's words about the audit will give your business those critical factors. What will it cost for my implementation? What will it save me? What's the payback period? And what grant can I possibly get? So that's the key things you need to bear in mind in regards to the service that we're providing. So good stuff. Okay, moving on to our third speaker, our final speaker. I would like to introduce our very own Sara Ballinger to the call. Over to you, please, Sara.
Thank you, John. Yeah, so I'm one of the energy advisors working with Coventry City Council at the moment, so working with SMEs in the Coventry region. Next slide. So I will be covering briefly the Green Business Network and just explaining some of the wider non-financial support for SMEs Midlands wide. So the Green Business Network has over 2,700 members currently. These are legacy members from the Coventry and Warwickshire Green Business Programme, but now it is a Midlands-wide Green Business Network. Any size business can join. A lot of the content will be tailored towards SMEs, but larger businesses, for example, can join as well and can benefit from the network. So what is the network? So it allows businesses to come together, share ideas, promote like case studies, bit of a knowledge hub, and is completely free to join. So we've got the QR code there if you want to join today, and obviously we've mentioned the slides will be sent out later on if you want to join later as well. Next slide. So what are the benefits? We have a monthly newsletter that goes out full of content. So I think I mentioned before case studies, for example, any updates on the grant funding or different grant funding pots that might be kind of relevant within the, I suppose, like the sustainability realm that we think you'd find useful. We will be doing a number of these webinars and also face-to-face events coming up around the region as well. So please keep an eye out on updates about those. But also, yeah, webinars, networking events, and also a podcast as well. So there's a QR code to subscribe to our podcast. So we are going to be doing a new episode every month. We already have over 10 episodes hosted on the website on a range of topics in sustainability, so solar PV, heat pumps. There's a really interesting one on carbon accounting there, which we hope will be really useful and enable you to gain knowledge in different areas. So yeah, I've already mentioned the QR code, keep pushing it, but yeah, and there's the link to subscribe there as well. Just to mention, we have a green business directory. So it is currently hosted on the Coventry website, but a lot of the suppliers and installers will cover Midlands-wide businesses. So they are local suppliers and installers of different energy efficiency and renewable technologies, so solar PV installers, compressors, LED lighting, etc. If you're a local installer or supplier, please get in touch and we can take your details and add you to the website. I suppose a bit of a caveat, we are a local authority. We haven't done any particular tender or procurement for these to host these businesses on our website. So yeah, please bear that in mind, but we hope it's a first port of call if you're struggling to get suppliers. So as part of the application process for each energy efficiency measure, you will need 3 quotes. So if you're struggling, feel free to have a look at the directory. And yeah, how you can get involved, please attend follow-on webinars such as this one. We will keep you up to date on what's happening. And yeah, look out for face-to-face events around the region that we'll be hosting as well. I think I mentioned case studies. So if you know of any case studies, so if you want your business to be included in the newsletter, we can potentially look at that. And I think just going back to Stephen Martin's presentations, you know, some of those wider benefits of, I suppose, like PR around sustainability and getting the message out to your customers, potentially we can help that by yeah, putting you on this platform. So yeah, if you are interested in that, there are Maria's details to do that. And yeah, just a final push for social media platforms as well. So there's our Twitter handle and LinkedIn. Please give us a follow, and we will be hosting any updates on the programme, such as events, etc., on social media as well. And finally, yeah, just there's the link for the Business Growth West Midlands. So I think, yeah, Martin said about initial referrals going through that website. So yeah, please have a look at the website and all the information on there as well. Yeah, thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you, Sarah. So yeah, just to reiterate again, there's a lot of information we've given you today. There's all the links, all the slides will be shared with you. So please, hopefully that's given you enough information to get in touch with us. So please reach out and register your interest, and we'll do all we can to help. And just to reiterate Sarah's closing comments, really, we're trying to pitch this as not just about the audit and the grant. It's about trying to promote that network and promote knowledge transfer and trying to get a bit of a community going on in terms of energy advice and reduction and so on. So it's about those soft benefits as well that we're trying to promote. So hopefully that'll all be of use to you as well. So, okay, well that closes the 3 speakers for today. As I said at the start, we're going to now go to a bit of Q&A, so we can try and get some interaction between our audience. And I'm pleased to say that there is some really good questions already in the chat. So to keep it simple, what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly just go through the ones we've not already answered in the actual chat and open it to our panelists, if that's okay. So Steve, Martin, and Sarah, if you're ready, fingers on the buzzers for answering some questions, if that's okay. John Luke has asked a very, very pertinent question actually about lead times. Now, to be fair, we've kind of dealt with this on the actual chat. But can any of you sort of give us an indication of what kind of lead times we're looking at the back of these? I'll caveat that with every application and every interest is going to be different. So could someone perhaps give Jean-Luc a bit of a background to what lead time to expect to audits and grants, please?
I can probably give a bit from the first part, not necessarily the grants, because the grants we're not involved.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Specifically, but in terms of the lead times, when a registration form is completed and eligibility is actually confirmed, and we receive the information through from the as an allocated thing to address. We try and contact the company the same day, or at least within 2 days of actually getting that registration form information to us. And within that conversation, we'll try and understand a little bit more about the organisation and learn a bit about what it's trying to achieve. And we'll also supply a list of the things that we actually want to collect in terms of energy bills, energy data, information on the process or the building prior to the assessment. And then we will try and fix a date to visit the company at a time that suits them, at a time that there's actually activity going on so we can see it. But we try and do that within 2 weeks, so 10 working days or 2 weeks. And once we've done the site visit, we try and turn the reports around with the recommendations within a further 10 days. Process after that in terms of the grants will really does depend on what scale of grant you're looking for, how long it takes to get the quotes in, and that does vary quite significantly.
Yeah,
I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you. Perfect. Basically, thank you, Steve. And I think I can perhaps guide you on the lead time for the grant bit, Jean-Luc, if that's okay. So normally what happens is you've had your energy report that flags some recommendations. Say you wanted to go for a new compressor, for example, you would have to then go out and get 3 quotes for that compressor to support your application. You would supply some financial information, fill out an application form, get it back to us at the relevant local authority. And from experience, the rate for application and approval, it's a quick turnaround. I would suggest you would have your approval, yes or no, within 3 to 4 days tops. So we're doing all we can to make it as slick as possible. So I hope that answers your question in terms of the back end grant bit.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's really good, because compared to companies, compared to organizations like Salix, you're talking about 10 weeks with them for large projects.
We work with you rather than against you, is what I'll say. So we're here to hold your hand and help as best we can. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just to add into that is the grant is, as like a lot of grants, is paid retrospectively. So you'll having, as the guys have said, got all the relevant information and had the application form kind of completed and checked. The grant will be approved, and then you will obviously go ahead and pick the supplier that's kind of best suited to your needs, work directly with them, and then obviously need to basically provide evidence that the invoice is in line with the initial kind of quotes, and that's been paid by yourself. And at that stage, then the grant amount can then be transferred. So there's obviously a kind of a period in terms of receiving having the grant award, but getting the money coming into you, depending on how long the installation will take and how long it's taken for payment to go out. So just to bear that in mind.
Okay, thank you, Martin. I've got a really good question here, which opens up a good discussion from Richard. Do the assessors cover all types of audits? We operate a very niche but energy-intensive process that would need special understanding to audit. That's a lovely question for your good self there, Steve, I think. If you can perhaps elaborate on that one.
I can. I think I actually dropped an answer to,
did you? Sorry.
in the chat as well. No, it's not a problem, because it obviously applies to everybody else.
Yes.
Part of the discussion that we have at the beginning is to try and understand what type of processes a business operates, and we recognise that there are a number of niche processes. Within the assessors involved, there's quite a wide range of experience. We've got about 7 or 8 people in our team, and we know there are also assessors in the team at Aston and the team at Coventry who have got specialist skills. If there is something that is really unique, then we will work between ourselves to find the most appropriate person to actually come do that. But all of the people that with the sites have got an experience of different sectors and different operations, and a lot of energy intensive activities, because that's where we spend most of our time working. Most of our activities are based on energy intensive businesses, because that's where the benefits can be achieved. More than happy after this session itself to talk about a particular process, but it's all about learning, understanding, and then matching the skills. But I think within the teams themselves, we've probably got about 20 different assessors that we could call on to provide that support for an individual business.
Okay, thank you. I've got some more questions from Richard here, but we have partially answered some of them, but I'll just quickly run through them again. I've got two pertinent questions related to the actual assessors themselves. Firstly, are the assessors security cleared? And then secondly, are they bound by any NDAs? Would that be I'm not sure whether you've already answered those questions back, Steve, or that's something you could perhaps expand on now if possible.
Okay, that's a couple of things. One is that the registration process, sections on privacy and privacy, that explains how that actually works. The organisations doing the reviews are bound by confidentiality agreements within the process itself. But we also recognise that there are some processes that organisations are either developing or believe are proprietary technologies, and if there are specific non-disclosure agreements that are required, it's quite normal for those to be presented, and we're quite happy to sign them, subject to being able to review them. But that's the minority rather than the majority, because there's not a large number of organisations that we deal with through this process who have something that is so unique that it requires a non-disclosure agreement.
Okay, thank you. Good answer. I'm just looking through what other questions we've got in. I think a lot of them have been answered by my colleague Claire already, which is great. I've just spotted a good one at the bottom, actually, from Wayne Wotton, which I can answer, but I think I'll open it to the floor just to get a more concise answer. Are local authorities allowed to refer local suppliers or companies to provide a quote for the business who is applying for the grant? I can take that one, or perhaps Sarah, do you want to take that one to expand further?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So we can't recommend particular suppliers because we haven't gone through the tender process, we haven't procured them. So we would go, in that case, we would recommend you look at the Green Business Directory. If you are a supplier yourself and you want to be added to that, we can take your details, and then we can list you on our website, so a business can find you on there. But yeah, obviously we have to be quite careful about, we can't recommend particular suppliers, but potentially if you're an installer and you want to get involved and possibly speak at an event or a webinar, we can have the conversation about that as well. There are, other avenues we can look at.
Yeah, good answer. I think just to clarify, speaking as a local authority, obviously working for Coventry Council, we have to stay impartial. We're not allowed to recommend particular providers for obvious reasons. And we do get asked a lot, whenever we submit an audit, very often the first question I get asked from a business is, right, you've recommended solar, who do I go to for the solar? And that's where the Green Business Directory comes in. So we have to stay out of that. Flipping that on its head, as a business, you can choose who you want to do the work. You'll just need 3 quotations within it. So, but it's a good question. I hope that's answered it concisely for you. Donna has actually raised a very good point. Actually, if you have had previous energy audits and grants, would you still be eligible for this newly available audit? Which is a great question. Can someone pick that one up for me?
Yes, the programme is, since the UK has left Europe, some of you may be familiar with previous European programmes such as the Regional Development Fund, where there was a state aid requirement, which was to have not received more than €200,000 worth of assistance within the kind of previous 3 years, and that kind of rolls across. So once you move from one year to the next, you kind of deduce the amount from the last year. Hope that made sense. What's happened is that we now have within the UK what's known as subsidy control. Broadly, it's the same kind of process. You need to have not received more than £315,000 worth of previous grant assistance within the previous 3 years. And for the people that are really kind of want to get into the detail, it's basically operated under a programme known as minimum financial assistance. So that's how the government is kind of controlling that. So it's one of your eligibility criteria. So as long as you've received less than £315,000 worth of grant assistance, and that would include previous ERDF programs or ESF or a number of others, then that would need to be informed when you're making your application. So for the sake of the kind of conversation, if you previously received £200,000 worth of assistance, as long as the current grant that you're applying for, it can't, in this case, it's a bad example, but as long as it's not coming to more than 115,000, by which point you'd exceed the 315, then you would be okay.
Okay, thank you. Good answer. Good answer. Okay. I think as well, just to sort of give you a bit of reassurance there, Donna, as well, I can, speaking personally, we used to run the Green Business Programme, which was ERDF funded before this programme started. We are now, myself and Sarah are now seeing companies that we've dealt with before under that programme, and we're now looking at the previous audit to recommend new things moving forward. So you can use both basically. So don't worry moving forward. I have a good question again from Richard. You've had a few good ones drop in the chat today, Richard, so thank you. And I don't know the answer to this one, and I'm not sure where to guide you on without having a further conversation, but I'll ask the expert panel. By the looks of it, you have a specific sort of a requirement in terms of the MOD. So can anyone answer Richard's question on security clearance for those kind of critical sites? I haven't been to any MOD sites myself. Have you, Steve?
Yeah. I think I've just responded to Richard on that. I'll read him my response.
Oh,
to the best of my knowledge, there is no specific security clearance that covers all of the assessors, but it's not unusual for us to work on MOD sites, either people making components or even rocket fuel for the MOD or other similar types of operations. It's not unusual at all, but that's normally where our activities are covered by specific non-disclosure agreements, which we're always happy to review and enter into with organisations who need them. And I did say to Richard that I'm happy to take this.
Yeah, perfect. So I
think conversation a bit further with him offline if he wishes. If it's a very specific concept, more than happy to do that as a one-to-one. But generally, it's the NDAs that allow us to do this type of work.
Okay, fantastic. Good answer, Steve.
Just adding on that, Steve, we're happy at the university. Again, we've worked with a huge number of businesses, kind of big and small, so we can also support in terms of supplying some reasonably kind of standard and straightforward non-disclosure agreement templates, if you want to kind of use those as a starting point. We don't, when we were recruiting, we weren't specifically looking at security clearance, as Steve has said, but again, across the organisations, there may be some, certainly within the university, some specialist staff that work with the MOD that may already have been kind of cleared to at least have some initial conversations. So depending upon what level and type of clearance that you're looking at, Richard, we can, as Steve said, we're happy to have an initial conversation with you on that.
Good stuff. Thank you. Yeah, it does sound like your requirements are quite bespoke, Richard. So this is what these webinars are for. So we're here to help you. So reach out and we can have an offline discussion with you moving forward. Are there any more questions? Does anyone want to perhaps raise their hand if they've got something they'd like to ask verbally, or put anything in the chat that's not been answered maybe? Or we can perhaps start, or perhaps we've answered everything succinctly. I'm not sure, but speak now or forever hold your peace, as they say. Okay. Well, I'll start to draw things to a close. I hope that's given everyone on the call. Hang on a minute. We've got the final question in from Wayne. does it? You'll have to give me a bit of context on that, Wayne. What does we know about the new Coventry strategic energy partner? What do you mean by the question? If you could perhaps jump on and speak, or in terms of the process for that, the two things are separate, if that's what you're looking at. I'm not quite sure what context you mean behind it, but the two programs are actually separate. So as an SME, you can apply for funding through us. The energy partner strategic thing is a separate thing. So sorry, that's very vague, but they're two separate programs, if that helps. Sorry. If not, then okay, good stuff. Thanks, Wayne. I'll close things down now. Thank you to everyone for attending. Thanks to our speakers for. Oh, hang on, we've got one more question in. Sorry. What is the quality assurance? Yeah, it's another question, good question about the surveyors. Obviously, we're getting a lot of questions about them in terms of the registration for energy assessors. And I keep picking on you, Steve, but you've got the most experience in this area. Is that something that you could perhaps guide on from your part of the programme? You can see the question.
I'm just going to see what the specific question is.
It's the very last one.
All right, okay, fine. Okay, quality assurance, yeah, okay. The quality assurance standards are actually PAS 1295 and the ISO 50002 standards, which are competency-based matrices. All of the assessors are actually assessed externally against those standards as part of the original tender process. So without those standards in place, it wasn't possible for organisations to actually bid for the work. Speaking for ourselves, all of our assessors are covered by those two standards.
Good stuff. Thank you. I hope that's reassured you. And we have a final question. Sorry, Lee, I thought this one had been answered, or I would have raised to the floor a bit earlier. Again, Steve, probably a question for you. The loggers that you mentioned on your nice graphs you showed us, those loggers, are they included within your assessment?
If that level of logging is required, then yes, they are.
Good stuff.
Yeah, there's no the grant process is free. Sorry, the assessment process is free, and if the assessment needs these loggers to actually make them worthwhile, then they're free as well.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Fantastic. Thank you. And Chris, good to see you on the call. Thank you for your kind comments. If you need to engage with us, Chris, then you know how to get in touch with us. Fantastic. Thanks for joining. Okay. I'm going to wrap up now, I promise. So, look, thanks to all the speakers for speaking today and also guiding the wider discussion and answering the questions. But most importantly, thanks to all of our people that have joined today. I hope it's been useful to you. We look forward to engaging with some of you soon. If you're ever so lucky, you will see me, Sarah or Steve on site at some point soon. I'll say that with in brackets, but yeah, we look forward to meeting you soon. So get in touch. The slides are going to be shared, and we're here to help you. So we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for joining.